Sorry, where I may appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to meet with me to discuss some HR and how HR plays a role in organizations. Um, let's see here. I'm going to ask you out front because I don't know how to pronounce your last name. So how do you pronounce your last name?
Well, Salcedo.
Salcedo. Eh,
Hmm.
I thought it started with an L.
My maiden name is LaRock. Aimee
Ah,
LaRock. So you got
okay.
the French and then the Mexican in the back end.
Okay. Well, actually,
Yeah,
Salcedo, if I had seen that one, I would have been able
I
to
know. I
pronounce
was
that.
like, hold on a minute.
Um, I mean, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how your responsibilities and your roles within the organization?
Sure. So I actually came on board when Icon first was I guess broke off of our now sister company W Industries. So that was a good 12 years ago. As of last month, I've been with the company for a long time. And I came on not long after graduating from UL's MBA program. So I have a soft spot for the for you and your assignment. But had I not had that experience in education, I would not be where I am today. I would not have gotten the job. They were specifically looking for someone with a master's degree in business.
One of my professors, she has a vodcast or a video uh, series that she has, and she interviews a lot of HR professionals, and most of them say the exact same thing. I didn't start off my career going into HR. I started off
Mhm.
in teaching. I started off in technology. I started off and I found my way into HR and they're loving it. Kudos to you on that. So what about HR is it that in your HR roles do you like the most?
Within HR, um, I like making a difference with an individual. And I don't honestly get that opportunity too often, but like when you're running numbers or you're rewriting a policy, you don't necessarily see the impact that you're making. And so for me, as an empath, I like to see someone get something out of what I can offer. So for example, we had an employee that was going on parental leave. And, we spent an hour going through this is the best way to structure your benefits. This is the best way to use your PTO and like trying to help, them take full advantage of what we have to offer so that they can spend the time at home. So just little things like that. It's not nothing, crazy, but I know that I'm making a difference there. And I mean, there's been various things throughout the years, but those are the most enjoyable for sure.
Cool. No, and I can see that. One of the things that when I was looking through your LinkedIn, that I should have understood and known, but they didn't make until I read it. I didn't I didn't think about it. You help with the visas uh and you getting that set up.
Immigration.
Yeah, immigration.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
in us being a technology industry, that we probably deal with a little bit more than others. But yeah, I was like, oh yeah, somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, that's a whole nother beast.
Yeah,
So much red tape, and you have to be very careful with, how you do things. Thankfully, we have an immigration attorneys that assist us with the filings and such, but that's a whole nother aspect,
yeah.
um, that we do offer, some of our employees or potential candidates.
So, in your experience over in HR, how have you seen HR change throughout your career?
Um, yeah, so I mean, obviously, with the Department of Labor, labor laws,
Hmm.
technology, all of these different platforms that are available, just us as a company, like how we were doing benefits and payroll back in 2014 compared to now, it's night and day. um, some other initiatives that we take, like the employee assistance program, things that we're able to offer employees at no cost.
Oh,
That
wow.
necessarily wasn't, and that's huge. The employee assistance program, offers our employees free services like free counseling, financial advising, support on finding elder care, child care, pet care. That's huge. And just what our benefit packages have to offer. So, I mean, a lot of it is technology. A lot of it is just, keeping up with the times. Keeping up with the market, keeping up with competition. I'm sure you heard for 2026, we're now offering a 401(k) match. We've been discussing this for at least 5 years. So parental leave, that was something that we discussed for 4 years. So definitely changes in policies, procedures, things that we've had to adapt to through COVID.
Mhm.
It's been, yeah, a huge change. You know, we had starting out with CSC, we had it was a more um, you know, we had more employees that are working within the office and less remote, less working from home. They were either in the customer office or in our office. Now we're primarily remote. We have employees all over the US. So that's been a big change as well. And because we have more remote employees that we're not getting the same face to face, we've had to adapt with technology and policies, company culture, all of those things because we're not getting the face to face that we had previously. So there's been a lot of change over the last 12 years, just over the last five. So you
You know, it's,
have to,
I'm sorry,
yeah,
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say you have to learn to adapt as a company to,
Yeah.
what the market and what employees are looking for, what potential like, candidates are looking for in an employer.
You know, which of those changes has been the hardest for you to overcome throughout, the career?
I think it continues to be company culture.
Hmm.
That's been one of our biggest struggles over the years because dealing with people, you have different personalities, you have people looking for different things out of their work, out of their job, So that's always been, kind of the thorn in my side, because it's not an easy solution. And we've grown to, 44 employees, but we have such a small number of those that are actually in office. Um, so I think, hiring, recruiting is hard as well because personality, again, someone reads well on paper, great experience, education, but you have to be able to assess if they're a right fit for our company, for that particular position, to work under that particular project manager, for example. So that's, always a challenge, kind of vetting out potential candidates. Um, and yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the hardest thing because at the end of the day, those same it's working with the public, because you have sometimes internal conflict. You have personalities that might not jive. So, like, how do you deal with that? You know, um, so that's been the not so fun parts of the job over the years because it is difficult. if you hire someone, that's great on paper and they're not, the customer isn't happy with them or something
Yeah.
like that. So you have to put together, an important performance plan, try to work with them to get them to where they need to be. Performance improvement plan is what we
Yeah.
call it. So yeah, those aren't fun, but I think it's a necessary part of the job and the company, to put those types of things in place.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's
You know,
the people,
yeah, when where I came from, when uh I was a little bit more involved while I was not in HR. Um, I was a little more involved in the hiring of team members for my for for my division,
Hmm.
mainly because um, being in sales and being in business development, I had to physically see all our customers, and you know, I didn't want to have to explain why we had a bad hire, and um, to to our biggest customer that was, providing us, millions of dollars a year in revenue, and we hired somebody that just didn't fit, and so I was always there at the end just to do the final, vetting. Hey, do I think that this person would fit in culturally with our group and then culturally with the company that we were planning on hiring them for, to do,
Hmm.
their major project or whatnot. So, yeah, I totally agree. I mean, well, like I said, I wasn't there for the whole HR portion of it. I was just usually there to just to vet out, just to
Hmm.
the people skills part of it. So
Right.
yeah, and while you're right, they look great on paper, and I'm an engineer as well, so I get this saying, but engineers aren't people.
No comment. I
Yeah.
mean, look, I've learned over the years, right? But that's not something you can teach at school,
No,
right?
you're right.
So it's just experience that kind of gets you to be able to, assess someone's character,
Hmm.
and the company.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, you know, would you say that HR provides a function that contributes to the success of an organization, such as like strategy, planning, stuff of that nature?
Um, I mean, it's hard to say because from some of my old schoolmates in the MBA program who
Hmm.
went on to become HR managers, their roles are very different from mine. So
Hmm.
because my role with CSE Icon is multifaceted, I'm not sure if it's because I do the financials of the company that I'm a little bit more involved in this
Okay.
piece. But so speaking for myself, I am involved with budgeting,
Hmm.
forecasting, recruitment efforts. We have a weekly operations meeting, so I can know what's coming in, what our efforts are. So, because, when you look at a large company, for example, you'll have one HR rep who is just doing policies.
Hmm.
So, would they have a lot of insight into, success planning? I don't know. Obviously, yes, in their policy portion, they're wanting to write in, exceptions or rules that make sense for the company going forward.
Hmm.
But as far as like you said, strategic planning, it's hard for me to say. But for myself, yes, I am involved in those types of conversations. Um, it has varied over the years based on the president of the company. So as involved as they want me to be. Um, I was not involved with, certain aspects of like forecasting or, um, planning for the company.
Yeah.
However, since 2017, I have been a lot more involved with that aspect. And I've really actually enjoyed that. Um, So, because it all goes hand in hand, right? So, with
So
the financials of the company, I know exactly like this is kind of where it's going. This is how we were last year. This is how we were the year before. Where do we need to be? I forecast for the company. So, if we're forecasting X amount in revenue, how many bodies do we need to get there?
yeah,
So
no.
it really all goes hand in hand. So it makes sense to me that I'm part of those efforts.
So, just I guess to lead off of that, like I said before, I've never been in HR, but um, where I came from, we ran our our offices as divisions, and we were in charge. Uh, the leaders of those offices, so like it was myself and my operations manager. Um, we were in charge of the P&Ls, so
Mm,
um, we got to see a lot of what you're talking about in terms of, forecasting what the office was going to do for the next year, how many employees we were going to need, what our burden rates were, what our burn rate for what our current projects were, so we can start planning on should we hire now, should we hire later, when do
right.
we hire, um, and those are strategic decisions that can make or break a project or make or break a business in my opinion down the
Mhm.
road. So yeah, no, I agree completely. Um, let's see here. How involved would you say that HR should be in like resource planning and the planning process? I mean, I totally get that they're part of the recruitment and the selection process, but do you think that they should be involved, as we were talking about earlier, when we're talking about what our our burden rates are and what our I guess what we have in the bucket for next year, how much work we have, do y'all get involved? Do you feel that y'all should be getting involved that way?
Um, yes, to a certain degree.
Okay.
Do I think that they should be? Yes, definitely. Um, and because, when again, from my point of view, when I'm looking at the numbers as,
Mm-hmm.
as part of my financial function, um, and we're hiring someone on, we're saying, okay, well, they're not going to be billable for the first 3 months. Immediately, I'm thinking, okay, what are my costs going to look like?
Yeah.
How are we recouping this? You know, what's their bill rate? What's their cost rate? So that needs to be taken into consideration. Just the little things when we're sending out an offer letter. They've asked for an additional week of vacation. So what does that mean? How is that going to impact us? You know?
Yeah.
Um, so, I feel like it's the second piece to recruiting. So we need to assess their talent, their experience, what they're bringing to the table, their technological um, forte or whatever it might be, why to bring them on to work with CSE. And then I would come in second and say, okay, well, what's the longevity? What's their history? What is their reference look
Mm-hmm.
like? So I think that they do play a part of it. Maybe not, uh, the first,
Mm-hmm.
um, the first interview or the first step, but definitely involved in some capacity.
So, in taking this class, I've seen some and I've learned some concepts that I hadn't thought of. And I was wondering, we hire across all over the United States. How do y'all deal with the compensation transparency laws in different states? Because is it because we're incorporated in a certain state that we don't have to do that, or how does that work?
So CSE was incorporated in Delaware, but that doesn't necessarily mean that their state governs what we do for hiring.
Okay.
Every state is a little bit different. Every state has different taxes, different labor laws. So that we have to take into consideration when we are even sending out an offer letter. To be fully transparent, I will fight tooth and nail to not hire someone in California. I don't want to deal. It's insane. So I want to stay out of California as much as possible. Um, but you know what we have kind of done in the past is like if we have a candidate that's in Canada, like Emil, we want to hire him. We'd love for him to be a full-time employee, but that's just not possible. So what's our workaround? Well, we hire him as a contractor through our sister company, who is a staffing agency. It's a recruitment company,
Okay.
Converge. So, or if we only have, one project that's going to last for maybe 3 months and we don't really see the need to hire them on full time, we just get that person as a contractor, a 1099. We're not having to pay PTO benefits, overhead costs. Um, so well, yeah. So when we do have a potential candidate in a different company, we have to do our due diligence and research what that means for us. We have to get registered in the state. What does that look like? How long does that take? And in addition to the state taxes, we have some that like Pennsylvania and Colorado that have additional taxes that we might not have in Texas.
Mhm.
So we have to kind of go through a little checklist and make sure that we are up to par with the regulations.
So with that said, how do you stay abreast of all of the changes that are coming on, in employment law and HR policies and how, because that's got to be changing, yearly at least. I mean, that's got to
Yes.
be.
Well, thankfully, I have, the HR director at CSE of Americas.
Hmm.
We work very closely together.
Hmm.
We also have assured partners who are our benefit brokers.
Hmm.
And like what we outsource our FMLA, like we just started this year, we've hired a company to take care of those employees that file for family medical leave.
Okay.
Um, so, and that's based on basically demand.
Hmm.
Um, but we get publications pushed to us through our payroll platform. Same with our benefit platform. So that's mostly
Okay.
what it is. And then on top of having assistance with the HR director at CSC of Americas, I also have a lawyer that I'll, contact if there's a very specific question, to make sure that we won't find ourselves into any legal trouble when it concerns, labor laws.
Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so what are some of the trends that you see that are in the, in industry that are you see coming across on the HR? And by that I mean like through the course I've learned that AI has become a bigger and more prevalent part of not just what I used to think the AI was about was, technology you know, and I guess I'm a little older, so I thought, the way I was introduced to AI was for machine learning and on the technical side of things of,
Hmm.
teaching a machine how to learn really in all aspects of manufacturing and uh, but the way it's being used today, I mean,
Hmm.
I'll be honest with you, my kids are using AI in such a way that I've actually started taking some courses on AI just so I can understand and stay up to par with these kids because you know
Yeah, can't fall behind.
right.
Yeah. So I'm admittedly behind the times as well.
Oh yeah.
But for AI, Garrett Gertson,
Mhm.
his office is actually right next to mine. I'm sure you've had conversations with him before.
Yes.
But I've actually learned a lot from him, and I'll be talking about I don't know what it was specifically. Oh, we were talking about digitizing. We have boxes of old files in our office, and we just needed to scan them in. And I was talking to him about that, and he was like, "Oh, well, if you want, we can do this, this, and this with AI, and do the document like this." And I'm like, "Okay." And so we've had a few conversations about how AI could help with documentation. Um, for HR purposes or financials. So I feel like that would be a great way to streamline things.
Hmm.
And then he was also talking about like the security of it, which obviously a lot of that's confidential information. So we want to keep that as secure as possible. So that's just on the, the in the future type planning. That's not something that we've delved into yet, but that's an option that's there available for us. um, just chat GPT,
Hmm.
writing a policy, I want to reword this, and that's been game changer, you know. Try not to lean on it too much, but also, when you see a resume, you can kind of tell like, okay, well, how much of this is engineered and how much is, the actual person's writing.
Yeah.
So, taking that into consideration, but um compensation, just any kind of research because we're trying to stay in the game. We want to remain competitive. We want to see what the fair market value is for, this candidate in this location. So AI has made it a lot easier to compare that information for us. Um, so it's definitely been an eye-opening, and I wish we would have had some of these things a long time ago. Um, but thankfully we still know how to think for ourselves. But it's been interesting kind of getting used to using that platform to help me do what I need to do. So that's been great. I don't know enough about it to see where else it could go.
Yeah.
Um, but we have, I mean, the guy next door to me in the office knows what he's doing, and that's his forte. So, I'm sure more conversations with him could really help us, HR admin streamline our processes. So, um, that's something
No,
worth looking into.
no, agreed. And like I said, I've been uh, in my history. I mean, I'm technical in background, but um, I've seen where I've I've seen and heard of AI for quite a while now, and you know, I've been involved with creating LLMs, which is large language models for machine learning, and basically teaching the machine to find errors in manufacturing.
Yeah,
Um, and so I always kind of, and I guess hadn't opened my mind and my head to the potentials it had until I started getting out and, you know, and my kids and, just listening. It's like, wow, the way it's being used and the way it's being the data. I do find that it's a concern in terms of privacy and data. Where Who owns the data? Where does it go?
yeah,
And then that's going to be something that down the road it's going to either bite us as a society in the butt if we don't start thinking about it soon. But I think uh,
agreed.
I think currently it's wild wild west out there right now with that. So.
Yeah, for sure.
So, what do you think the biggest challenge an HR professional has to overcome in the current employment environment?
Well, just that it's ever changing. You
Yeah.
have to be open to information. You have to be open to change. I think and I mean, like we talked about earlier, it's like dealing with the, your employment, dealing with people, and that's ever changing as well.
Yeah.
Different outside factors like COVID. Well, how does that impact your employees personal lives that then have an effect on their work life.
Hmm.
How do you help them help themselves? How do you make work, you know, not as much of a strain? Things like that. Mental health has become such a large concern and issue that has come more to light in the last few years, and we have to adapt to those concerns and those changes. So that's been another thing, just in the more recent years.
Yeah, and I say this more recent years because I mean I've been in the workforce for some time. I'm not going to age myself there, but but uh, it I this the mental health aspect of of employment. Um, I remember when it was, just buck it up and, just get to work.
Yeah, right, right.
They
Very
didn't care.
taboo.
Yeah, they didn't care what, how you felt, mentally. We didn't pay you to come think about, how you feel. We paid you to come
Yeah.
do something, and it's changed, and I've seen that changed over my career. So yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah.
Um, well, I'm looking at the time here. I'm trying to be respectful of your time, and I appreciate the amount that you've already given me. So, let me ask one last question. Do you have any advice for an MBA student that's trying to get into HR? Um, you know, what would you any advice that you would give to them at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about balancing what the company needs and what the people need.
Okay.
Catering to your staff, but also keeping in mind, the success of the company,
Hmm.
if that makes sense to them. And it's not just, policies and paperwork. It can be a large part of it, but it all comes down to communication, communication with the staff, communication with management. Um, so it's basically, just to be open-minded and you're, as we discussed earlier, constantly changing. So you have to adapt to those changes as well.
Okay. Well, May, I appreciate your time. Thank you again. It was enlightening, so thank you. And I guess do you mind if I list your LinkedIn on my report?
I know that's fine.
Okay. Well, thank you.
That you reminded me, I guess it still has my maiden name on there, so I might have to go and update it. But it's
Okay.
the same person.
Okay. All right, May. Thank you for your time again, and I appreciate it.
Okay, I'll see you this weekend.
Yes, ma'am. Thanks. Bye
Thanks.
now.
Bye-bye.